Well, if you're not using systems thinking in your business to be able to run your operation, you're missing out on a key component of your success. You're also missing out on an opportunity to be able to maximize your continuous improvement efforts. My guest is Chad Bareither, and he talks about the importance of systems thinking. And we touch a little bit about his book, Improve Less, and learn some secrets that he has to share with you. My name is Gary Cox. Welcome to Mic Drop, Insights and Lessons from CI Thought Leaders. I am your host. I'm also the author of the book, Cultivating Champions of CI, a leader's toolbox for creating a continuous improvement culture. Yeah, the building a cynic versus an advocate. You want to build advocates. So, what's been some of your strategies for doing that in a pointed way?
I really like a lot of what Russ Acuff taught and spoke about in terms of systems thinking. So we look at everything as a system and a process. And I may not use that language exactly like we're going to now map out your systems and your processes, but it's leading through kind of like with Socratic questioning to get the client and the individual project leads to this awareness of I do need to stabilize. I do need to understand the processes that are at play, right? I can't sub-optimize. I can't be running, one piece of equipment in the middle of this value chain at max capacity if it's not getting me anything else out of that. But I can tell them that, but I need to lead them to that conclusion. And so how do we do that is we use things like system and process. A tool we use is a KPI, key performance indicator tree of saying like, what are we trying to get? And then so what are the requirements you need to get there? What are your enabling processes? Lo and behold, most of them, there is no process to deliver that requirement. So like, I need a production schedule. Great. What's your process for producing a production schedule? Right. And they kind of tilt their head like a dog staring at the radio, right? It's like, I don't understand what you just asked me. It's like, okay, well, that's a process we probably need to develop. And so that's a simple example of the process that we go through in an engagement, but we need them to understand is it can't just be working harder and it can't just be leadership like wanting the improvement. We actually have to invest in the discipline, and it kind of leads to the next thing is leadership changing their behavior as well. So like all this daily management and this improvement isn't just something for the shop floor to do, right? It's not for them and not for us. It is an enterprise approach. And so that means, guess what? Leadership, I also need you to change some of your behavior. So if we're going to have daily management meetings and we're going to track metrics, like you should do that too, right? Your team should be looking at that and saying, how do we measure our performance? What's our contribution? And while those leaders are probably not shouldn't be solving, like the daily troubleshooting on the shop floor with, machine settings and non-conforming material, they should be solving the process and the system and the strategy problems of, do we have the skill set and the labor force that we need 3 years from now if we're growing? When should we start to think about investing in new IT systems to integrate some of these processes? Like they need to be thinking about that, but not once in a while, all the time. All the time They need to be thinking about that, which means I need the shop floor taking care of the daily problems, and that's the system that we help put in place.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely essential. I was depending on the client, and maybe you have some sole proprietor type clients who maybe started on their own in their own little shop, maybe their garage, who knows, right? But I mean, I've got clients who went from 2 guys and a truck to 40 some odd trucks and employees, and they grew so quickly and organically that they didn't put the things in place that they needed to really drive success. And what was happening is they got successful just by the volume of work that came their way, but they didn't put the structures in place. Even things like inventory management and understanding how you manage your staff and what a good day looks like for them, right? You're just simply asking them, describe a good day for me. What's a good day for you? And usually it's not metric related. It's usually feeling related, right? If I feel like I did this, or I feel I got that done, or I feel, right, I didn't get any complaints today. So I asked them about what are they using for success measures at the front line. And that is usually a big eye opener for me when I start to talk to the leadership to say, is that what you want your staff to say when they say they're having a good day?
Yeah. It's an excellent point, right? And I was just having a conversation last week about this as well, about just transparency and like the principle of visualization and visual management. And part of it is just setting clear expectations. So for that front line of like, how do I know if I had a good day? Like, wouldn't it be great if you had a clear objective to hit and that objective didn't move every day, right? So,
Right,
so it's so I
exactly.
mean
So
that's doing
yeah,
people a favor. One of the, the tenets of lean, if you go all the way back to as Toyota's production system is continuous improvement and respect for people. But how respectful is that? It's so much respect from leadership to set a clear expectation and say, this is what I need you to do. Not I need you to do whatever to get it out. It's like, okay, so like I've worked with organizations where no job descriptions and
yeah.
no clear performance reviews. And I'm not advocating for performance reviews. I mean, like annually. So I don't want the Deming folks here to come hunt me down, right? That's not what I'm saying here. But what I am saying is like, is it clear like what you're supposed to do and like whether or not the process is working? And
Mm.
sometimes it's not. If it becomes subjective to like, I feel like it was a good day or I don't know, like there's anxiety there. And so showing some of the respect for the people is like, well, let's get all of that out of the way and just free up people's mental capacity to focus on the problems, not worrying about whether or not they're doing a good job.
No, and that's exactly how I feel about it as well. I think you and I are like-minded that way. I know when I'm working with folks around that very thing, and I simply say, so how many units were you supposed to put out today? Right? And they just simply don't know. I said, well, if you said, hey, if I said six, would that be achievable? Yeah, I could do six. Okay, well, let's start with six, right? And we'll see. And then the next day you say, how many did you get out? I got out five. Okay, well, what prevented you from getting out the sixth one? Let's talk about what prevented you from doing six, right? And then we start to get into that discussion. Or they do seven, and we say, okay, now you thought you were going to do six, you got seven done. Now, was it because what happened for you allowed to do that? Maybe we can learn something here. So having those discussions around established metrics, daily metrics for me is kind of I love to do that when I'm on the front line, walking around to talking to the staff, just saying, yeah, tell me about your day. What's a good day look like? And I just take it from there. If you're getting value out of this episode of Mic Drop Insights and Lessons from CI Thought Leaders, be sure to like, subscribe, add your comments. I'd love to hear them.
Yeah. And I don't mean to jump in on that, but you said something earlier that needs to tie into this is like working yourself out of the job, is that the leadership needs to understand like that's not like the CI guy's job, right?
No.
It's every leader's job to learn this. And this is part of, going back to when I said leadership has to change their behaviors. They need to create this space for feedback and reflection and learning. And all that sounds like it's very difficult to monetize. Like, what's the return on investment for, daily reflection? It's like, well, I mean, I can't put a dollar value on it. However, you can look to organizations that do it well and they have lower turnover and higher profit and better customer retention. So I can't draw a mathematical equation to show it for you, but when you talk about working yourself out of the job, you need leadership to be driving those questions of we put the tools in place, but the tools like daily management and visual, like safety, quality, delivery, cost, metrics, like it's only a tool that's going to enable the behavior of asking those reflective questions you just said.
Yeah, no, and if your leaders are not asking those right questions, the leaders are not thoughtfully thinking about how do I engage my staff in meaningful discussions about what they do and how they do it, then in my mind, you're I won't say failing as a leader. There's opportunity for improvement in your leadership style if you're not having those conversations.
And that's a challenge in those organizations you talk about, where if you started off as like a sole proprietor and you've grown the business, is like, I know the business, I grew the business. What I'm good at is running that portion of the business. But unfortunately, when you scale, your role changes a little bit. Like I need to teach someone else to do that. I need to be asking the questions someone should have been asking me when I was running the business at that scale. So, obviously you can't go back and undo. You can't, implement systems and processes when you should have, right? That Chinese proverb, right? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Like we can't undo what we've already invested in, but we can, starting today, starting tomorrow, right? We can start to say, man, like what do I wish someone would have been coaching me through, teaching me when I was leading at that scale, is a good mindset to get the leaders into. And just frankly, this proven tool set of lean and continuous improvement is just, it's an accelerant. Like, this already works. So then we just need to use that as the platform to change the way you're behaving as a leader.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You triggered something there for me with regards to the way that sole proprietors often have the entire business in their mind, and a couple have come to mind that I've worked with over the last year or so, where I've been saying we've got to take what's in your head and we've got to disseminate that to some key folks for you, because I said, you can't even play around a golf without having to talk to, somebody about something as it relates to how you run your business. And that nobody's going to buy a business like that, because if you're looking to sell your business in a few years' time, so you're playing golf full time, you're not going to be able to do that, because people can't buy what's in your head. They have to see it at work when you're not there. And when you're not there, that's when they'll know that the company is running the way that they can buy it and feel it's you understand what I mean, how it's running that way. I often talk to those owners to say, if it's your vision to sell this organization, your company, at some point, or hand it off to, your son or daughter, or, generationally, you're handing it off. You can't hand off. Nobody's gonna love this business like you do, because you started it. So what we've got to do is we've got to put things in place for you that allow people to run this business the way you want it to be run when you're not here. So yeah. It's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So the leadership transition, even if it's not at the top and selling the business, I was just on, I think, Friday night having a conversation with, so my father-in-law is a retired pipe fitter, right? So he was a union employee, a tradesman for his entire career. And so he's seen companies come and go. And he says, like, we were just talking specifically, he gave me an article to read that was about kind of the stresses of labor, and we won't get into that now, but the context that came up was like talking about plumbing business. And he says it's not usually the second, but usually the third generation of those businesses that it fails, because the first generation, they worked hard, they built it. The second generation, they taught them. Now it's like you've kind of got these degrees of separation where it's just running a business, but there's no system in place to run the business. So if you don't know the business, you can't run it. Right. And so exactly what you're saying is like the value of it. And again, it's difficult, like we said, to put an ROI or a price tag, but the value of having that system in place is so high.
Oh, remarkably so. I agree. So in your book, you emphasize the importance of, that few initiatives to achieve the results. What's your approach to which initiatives they need to focus on?
Well, I mean, I will definitely have an opinion. Like once I've seen the organization, once we're under NDA and I've looked at some of their financials and kind of toured the facility, I kind of have an idea of directionally where they should be going. But I mean, that is the job of leadership, to set the direction. And this kind of ties in a very strong parallel to saying, if you make metrics visible and owned at the front line, like I take ownership over getting that 6 units a day you were talking about, right? I want to get that. Leadership will own the goal if it comes out of their mouth. So I can like lead them in the direction of getting there, but that is leadership. Leadership is understanding the business, setting the strategic direction, right? We're going to take that hill, right? We're going to sail for that shoreline, whatever. So the way we get there is just really understanding, starting qualitative, like you were saying, like, I feel good about today. Well, how would you feel good? And blah, blah, blah. And there's a couple of leadership workshops that we go through to get to that point of now coalescing on an objective, which would be words, and then saying, now put a number behind that, right? And so we do get the leadership, either the small circle leadership team, or in smaller organizations, the founder, if you will, to say, like, objectively, where are we trying to go with the business? And then say, now let's help us figure out, like quantify what that looks like in terms of the objective. So we start objective, which is qualitative, then goal, which is quantitative. And then we use our KPI process to break it down and to then identify which initiatives. So again, it's in words, and then how much we need to improve each of those by. So words, numbers, kind of that progression. But it does have to start with the leadership understanding the business and where they want to go and what's preventing them from getting there.